Pamela Madsen. I'm a licensed as associate professional counselor here in Georgia. I work with adult individuals and couples and adolescents as a psychotherapist and providing treatment for trauma, anxiety, and depression and couples counseling. So I work with people who might be struggling from, acute experiences or relational difficulty.
Wow. Thank you so much, Pamela, for joining us today for our Healthy at Home. And we're excited to have you. While you were talking, I was just thinking about the work that you're doing. Tell me about why did you choose this field? Why do you do this work that you do? Share with our viewers about that.
Sure. Well, I am a second career therapist. So I previously worked in finance and business for a company that's actually based out of Atlanta. It used to be. It's called First Data, but I think they were just purchased by Fiserv. But that was some years ago. I had the opportunity to stay home with our girls for most of their young years, and I have a daughter with ADHD. And saw that there was just a real need for improved therapeutic supports in the schools. And so I thought about going into school counseling. But while I was in graduate school, I fell in love with therapy and just really found my calling. It came so easy to me. And so I've been kind of training for it since birth.
I love that. I love that. Were there any things in your childhood? You said you've been training since birth. Was there anything in your childhood that, helps to really solidify why you're still doing this, why you are doing this work?
I think everyone has, they bring a lot of things from their childhood and their relationships with their parents and siblings and other experiences. So, and I've always been really curious about other people, but mostly I just was taught really early on to care for others, to take care of others, and just became probably really skilled at reading people's emotions. So have always been a helper and a healer at heart. So, yeah.
Oh, cool. Well, I want you to talk to us today. We have a very, very good topic that we're going to be sharing with our viewers. And that topic is self-compassion skills to mitigate PTSD. And so I really want to jump into that. But I first want you to tell us, what is self-compassion? Let's define that for us.
Okay. Well, so self-compassion is often confused with self-esteem. And so probably the best thing, since everyone's familiar with self-esteem, and that was a real focus for a long time in mental health, it'd probably be best to differentiate that from self-compassion first. So self-esteem can be pretty toxic. So we have difficulty taking responsibility for our actions and opportunities for growth when we're focusing on self-esteem. Opportunities for growth are what some people might consider shortcomings, but I try to keep it positive. Okay. So self-esteem, pumping ourselves up sounds like a good idea, right? And we do need some self-esteem. But it really, when you think about it, is a comparison of ourselves to others. And the problem is that we have a tendency to move the goalpost each time we get near to reaching our accomplishments. So we end up viewing ourselves from a deficit perspective when we're measuring self-esteem. So the irony of placing emphasis on building self-confidence and self-esteem is that it can be counterproductive. You'll have insecurity, anxiety, and depression. Those are incredibly common in our society, and much of this is due to self-comparison. So we beat ourselves up when we feel we aren't winning at the game of life.
Mm-hmm. So why this topic, self-compassion, and giving us the skills to mitigate the PTSD? Why this topic?
So self-compassion, let me go ahead and define that out for us here then. So self-compassion, so like many of my clients, when this idea was introduced to me of self-compassion, I didn't really think this was a thing, right? Even though I'm a second career therapist, I've always been a helper and a healer. And as far as empathy and compassion for others, I had perfected that for most of my life, like I talked about. And I can certainly understand other people being in pain. And I was taught to care about others from a young age, from childhood. But it never occurred to me to show my self-compassion. And so Peggy Riley, she's a wonderful therapist and founder at the Sage Center in Tucker. She introduced me to the idea of self-compassion, and she shared this quote with me. It was, you yourself, I've written this down, you yourself as much as anyone else deserves your love and affection. So when you think about those words, they're pretty powerful. And now she shared some other little nuggets of wisdom with me, but her directing me towards self-compassion, it not only changed my relationship with myself, but I'm going to go ahead and credit her with changing my entire approach to practicing therapy now. And you see, I hear from clients and family and friends often that they feel they should be doing, and you can fill in the blank with whatever you want here. Like, I should be working out. I should eat better. I should put this cat down and clean the kitchen. I should be making elaborate Pinterest crafts with my kids. What are some others? Like, I shouldn't be crafting, and instead I should be cleaning the bathrooms. I should get this house project done. We're under a major renovation here at our home, and I shouldn't be resting. I should be painting, right? Can you think of any? How often?
Oh my goodness. I'm just, things are running through my mind about, I should be organizing my closet and instead of laying down and watching Netflix, but I can't think of there's so many projects that I know that needs to be done around the house. And sometimes I can just feel so guilty without doing it because I do have some time, but maybe not a lot of time, but I feel like I should be filling in those gaps. So I do understand what you're talking about, that there are definitely so many of those I can think about.
We spend a lot of time, and I call it shoulding, on ourselves. And I catch my clients do it. I do it to myself. I see my kids doing it. And that's something I've had to really jump in and mitigate. But most noticed it going on a lot while we've been quarantined and asked to stay at home. And so thinking about all that we should be doing with this time in quarantine, I cringed when I read some celebrities suggesting that we should spend time learning a new language and something we should consider more worthwhile.
Wow. That is very interesting that you would say that. So what are some techniques or, steps that we could take to get towards, is it self-compassion, or what are some steps that we could take to do that?
Well, I think the first step is really just recognizing that, like, you're going through a lot right now. Whether or not you're comfortable at home, or you have like for me, a major renovation on pause and some struggles there, or you're concerned about how you're going to feed your kids. Maybe you've lost your job. And there's a spectrum of difficulty here, but we're all experiencing the loss of certainty. And so you could be on this end or this end and experiencing things differently, knowing that it's a continuum. And you can say, yeah, but so-and-so, or there are people that have it worse. Do you see how that's not really honoring like what your experience is? Because we are taking on something called continuous trauma right now. We have the loss of social contact, the loss of things, we had always known to be true. I don't know about you, but all of my weekends in the past have been at my kids' soccer games, and we could always eat in restaurants if we had the money to pay. To me, infectious disease outbreaks were something that just happened somewhere else.
Thank you so much for, talking about that, Pamela, because oftentimes people do minimize what they're going through because they don't want to be selfish, want to seem like they're self-centered or decrease what somebody else is saying. But how important is it really for someone to not minimize what they are going through?
Well, I'd say it's pretty important, definitely. And it's something that we do really well for others. When we think about showing compassion to others, we're all usually pretty good at that. That involves just recognizing and clearly seeing the suffering that someone else is experiencing, and sharing kindness. And you have this desire to help. It involves recognizing our shared human condition and flaws, and that how fragile things can be. So using self-compassion, that involves the same kind of qualities. So you want to show the same kind of love and care that you would show to your close friend or your child. Think of talking to yourself like 3-year-old you. You know, like this would be scary for, or probably more specific, school-age kids, because their world was really turned upside down. Think of 5-6-year-old you, where you don't have a clear understanding of the world, but all of a sudden you're not allowed to see your teacher that you had bonded with all year. And it can also, like you said, it can sound kind of like self-indulgence or self-pity. But it's not really either one of those. It's being honest with yourself about your experience and giving yourself permission to be imperfect. You can make mistakes. You can take the day off and watch Netflix when you feel like you need rest. You're just looking to honor what's really going on with you. And self-compassion fosters positive mind states and increases happiness and optimism, which is really what we are needing more of in difficult times. So all of this brings me to my present work as a trauma therapist working with adults. And really, what a time to be in this profession, right?
Yes.
I've got couples locked up at home with each other who are certainly like we've never experienced the nature of what we're all experiencing, a continuous collective trauma. And what we know about trauma survivors is that not all of them develop PTSD, and which is an anxiety disorder essentially. But the hallmark of PTSD is avoidance of triggers. So if we avoid the idea that we're human and that we might possibly need some understanding and fill up our time with learning Swedish or reorganizing a closet or drinking copious amounts of alcohol to tune out our feelings, we're more likely to develop PTSD.
Talk about some of like the exercises or something that we could do or skills that we could do to practice self-compassion.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got several, and one thing that I use with a lot of my clients, I've got this card deck of self-compassion exercises.
Oh.
And working with my trauma clients, a lot of times in session, is I'll pull one out and just assign them one to work on each week. So this one is called Warm Fuzzy. I really like this one. And so the instructions are to place a hand gently on your heart, arm, or cheek, and take a moment to just feel that sensation and what emotions arise. And just really leaning into that one. And one reason I really like this is I think about when my daughters were young. And my littlest one in particular, when she was a baby, if I would just touch her face, I would get this relief and this just complete bliss look on her face, like she felt seen and loved. And I thought about how I could do that for myself. And it's cool because you can do it anywhere, anytime you're having a hard moment. You can just like put your hand on your arm and just rub it, and just showing yourself that, you deserve physical affection and love, and you can support yourself in hard times. So I really like that supportive touch exercise.
I like that too. As I was leaning, I was just feeling the warmth of my hand and just feeling relaxed and rest and peace. And you're right. It does. It really does help. I'm excited to share that with our viewers because it really does help. I mean, and I've only done it for just a moment, but I can imagine even, and I'm in a good space right now, but even when you're not in a good space, just that touch and just that simple hand on your face or rubbing. So thank you for sharing that. What are some other ways?
Well, another one is self-compassion letter writing. So yeah, everyone has something about ourselves that we don't like, something that causes us to feel shame, to feel insecure or not good enough. And so writing a self-compassionate letter, this exercise is to help you accept that issue from a place of acceptance and compassion, the same way that you would support a friend and accept them. You meet them where they are with unconditional positive regard. So, and you offer yourself that in your letter writing. So writing a compassionate letter to yourself.
When you write that letter, after you write it, are you reading it back to yourself, or what happens after that point?
With my clients, they can keep it. They can read it each day. I have some clients that are very private, and they'll like burn it. Like writing, they keep a journal of like self-compassion. And so there's just, everybody's got something different. Everyone feels differently about putting their feelings down on paper. But you can even just write it on little Post-it notes and put it on your mirror in the bathroom. And it's just a way to show care and compassion and affection for yourself because you deserve it.
So that's the second way. The first way is just a compassion touch. And then another way is maybe writing a journaling, a compassionate letter to yourself. And whatever you choose to do after that, read it, burn it, stick it on your mirror. That's totally up to you. Are there any other ways that we can share? These are some great tools that we're able to share with our viewers.
Yeah, I've got another one. Treating yourself as a friend. So I want you to think about, how do you think things might change if you responded to yourself the same way when you're going through a hard time that you would typically respond to your close friend when he or she is suffering? And in this exercise, you walk through in your mind and even out loud, if you're experiencing something hard, would most of us say, okay, well, this is tough, but so-and-so has it worse, or I really need to get it together and just get over it. And I don't like to talk about people getting over things, but maybe getting on with it eventually. But to honor that moment, like, we're going through something really difficult right now. And if I were talking to a friend, I would say, I'm here for you. And I'm here to encourage you. Here's things I admire about you right now. And these are the things that we should be practicing talking to ourselves. And there I just said should. We could be practicing talking to ourselves. And it's a much kinder way to experience ourself and our relationship with ourselves.
I love that third one that you talked about, treat yourself as a friend. Do you have any personal examples that you can share with our viewers to help bring it home to them even more?
Yeah, absolutely. Here recently, I recognized that I needed to change up my self-care routine a little bit. And so I ordered a subscription to TheraBox, which sends some self-care items monthly here for the next couple months while I'm at home. It's got some really great self-care items. I have some lotions, essential oil things, a roll and stick for my headache, a natural treatment for headaches. I've got this ring on my finger that you rub up and down to keep me present in difficult times, and there is for anti-anxiety. This I really love. I wear it all the time.
Oh wow, that's great. Is that sort of like a fidget? Is it fidgets that they have, or is that comparable to that? Because you're moving it. I don't know. I was just asking. It's very interesting.
So it's kind of like spring loaded. I can hold it up for you.
Oh, nice.
Just rub it up and down your fingers. You can move it from finger to finger really easily. But the sensation is kind of prickly. You wouldn't want to leave it on real long because it could constrict your circulation a little bit. But it's kind of prickly, but not uncomfortable. It just helps you stay present in times where you might be feeling pretty difficult, like a difficult or sadness, things like that. You can really just notice what's happening in your body, which is another thing I really have been working on, is something called interoception, and that's noticing the sensations of your body and paying attention to those and addressing them. And so sometimes I'll be upset, and then I'll take a moment and I'll feel like my muscles and my shoulders might be really tight, and then I'll be really mindful about relaxing them. And sometimes I'll just say, okay, based on what's going on in my body, what do I need right now? I've noticed I haven't been drinking enough water. I'm usually thirsty when I ask myself that. Time to hydrate. Sometimes I just need to stretch or walk. I've been trying to walk in between my sessions, which is difficult here at home. You can't really go for a walk around your house, but I try outside of plants in between sessions or something like that. But just noticing what I need and give myself permission to give it to myself.
There you have it. We have 3 self-compassion exercises that we can do. And the first one, again, is touch. And then the second one is writing a letter to yourself, a self-compassion letter. And then the third one is to treat yourself as a friend. And Pamela has given us so many different ideas and ways to think about it. And I always think that's helpful for people, because sometimes people don't understand how they can do that. So I appreciate you sharing your own personal experience about that. And these are tools that all of us can use, and that is important. That I love this topic of self-compassion to mitigate PTSD. And so by us all going through all of this at the same time, it's kind of very interesting. And I feel I feel like your work is definitely going to increase a lot after this. But whatever we can do to help our viewers at home, to have a healthy life and a healthy family, that's what we want to do. That's what our Healthier Home series is all about. So is there any takeaways or any words of encouragement that you can share with our viewers?
Yes, absolutely. I would say I really like that quote, to remember that you yourself deserve your love and affection just as much as anyone else. And to remember you can give that to yourself in difficult times. And that if I've given you a lot of like little tools you can try at home. You can reach out to a lot of therapists who are available online with their blogs to other ideas. But if you do need extra support, don't be afraid to reach out. That's what we're here for. And our job is really to work ourselves out of a job. So
Yeah.
we'll be happy to times. We're all experiencing them.
Yeah. Well, if our viewers needed to find that support or resources, how would they be able to connect with you, to get in touch with you?
Let me first share the number for the Georgia Crisis and Access Line. I think that's really important in case someone is feeling like they need assistance right away. And the number we call it GCAL. And the number for GCAL is 1-800-715-4225. And if you would like to reach out to me, I'm available for consultations for adults, couples, and adolescents. And you can email me at Pamela@empowercounseling.net.
Well, thank you for sharing with us. There you have it. Thank you for joining us for our Healthy at Home series. We appreciate you.
So much, Catherine. You guys have a good day.
All right, you too.
If you want to learn more about Georgia Center for Opportunity, please visit our website at georgiaopportunity.org, or you can catch us across all platforms on social media. Thank you again, and don't forget to like, comment, and share. We look forward to seeing you next week.